Get off my stage right now. The woman's voice ripped through the morning air like a chainsaw. I looked up from the soundboard I was setting up to see her storming across the amphitheater lawn, red blazer flapping behind her like a war flag, flanked by 3 security guards in matching polo shirts. Behind her, 40 people I'd never met were unloading folding chairs and a catering truck onto my grandfather's property. This is our community theater space. You are trespassing on HOA property, and I'm shutting this down immediately. She reached for the power cables, her manicured nails inches from unplugging everything. I stepped between her and the equipment, my voice deadly calm. Touch that cable, and we're calling the police for vandalism. Her face flushed crimson, eyes blazing with the kind of rage that comes from someone who's never been told no. Do you know who I am? I'm Diane Whitmore, president of Riverbend Community Association, and this amphitheater has been OUR neighborhood gathering space for 15 years. You can't just waltz in here and claim it because you inherited some old piece of paper. She jabbed her finger at my chest, close enough that I could smell her perfume mixed with fury. I'm calling the sheriff, and when they haul you off in handcuffs, maybe you'll learn that community rights matter more than your selfish property claims. My amphitheater. My 2-acre waterfront. My inheritance. The stone theater my grandfather built with his own hands in 1982, 17 years before this neighborhood even existed. This woman, whoever the hell she thought she was, had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Ma'am, I said, pulling out my phone to start recording, you have exactly 60 seconds to get off my property before I press charges for trespassing, harassment, and attempted destruction of private property. Your choice. Her perfectly painted lips twisted into something that might have been a smile if it held any warmth. Your property? Oh, sweetie. You clearly haven't read the 2023 Community Spaces Amendment. This amphitheater belongs to all Riverbend residents now. And you? You're about to learn what happens to people who put themselves above the community good. August 2024. 3 months since my grandfather died and left me this 2-acre amphitheater he'd built stone by stone in 1982. Benjamin Cross, theater director, stubborn builder, the man who raised me after my parents died. His last words in the hospital, "Don't let them rewrite the show, Alex." He'd pressed a bronze theater mask into my palm, inscription on the back reading, "Some stages are worth fighting for." I thought he was being dramatic. He'd always been dramatic. 40 years directing community theater does that, but watching 40 strangers claim his life's work as their own, I understood. He'd been warning me. Alex Cross. That's me. 32 years old, audio engineer, and apparently the newest target of an HOA president who'd built a career on taking what wasn't hers. Diane Whitmore pulled a leather folder from her designer bag like she was serving a subpoena. This is the Riverbend Community Spaces Amendment, approved March 2023. It designates all amphitheater, park, and waterfront access points within our boundaries as shared community resources subject to association, oversight, and programming fees. I took the document. It looked official, embossed letterhead, dense legal language, the kind of formatting designed to make regular people feel stupid and back down. The Riverbend Community Association logo gleamed at the top in gold foil. I read it twice while she stood there with her arms crossed, confidence radiating off her like heat. Interesting, I said, handing it back, except this amphitheater was built in 1982. Your neighborhood didn't exist until 1999. You can't retroactively claim private property just because you wrote it in a binder. Her smile tightened into something sharp. The amendment doesn't only cover properties within the original development, Mr. Cross. It addresses cultural resources for the entire district. Your grandfather's amphitheater has been used for community events for 2 decades. That creates precedent. You owe $750 in annual facility fees, plus $2,500 in unauthorized commercial use penalties for the concert series you've been advertising. I'd like to see the county recording for this amendment, I interrupted. The official document showing when my property deed was modified to include HOA jurisdiction. The smile disappeared entirely. The amendment is filed with our association records. That's sufficient legal authority. No, I said slowly. It really isn't. The 3 security guards shifted uncomfortably. One of them was sweating through his polo despite the cool mountain morning. Diane's jaw tightened in a way that told me she wasn't used to being contradicted, especially not by men half her age. Mr. Cross, I can see you're going to be difficult about this. Let me be very clear. This festival happens today, with or without your cooperation. If you interfere, we'll pursue legal action and you'll find yourself facing far more than $3,250 in fees. You'll find yourself unable to work in this community at all. She handed me a formal notice, snapped her fingers at the security guards, and marched back to her setup crew. The guards followed, but I caught one of them glancing back at me with something that looked like sympathy. I stood there, holding that notice in my work gloves, watching the dust settle on the gravel path my grandfather had laid stone by stone. My path. The path that led to the property Benjamin Cross had bought, with teaching money and summer stock theater paychecks in 1982, back when Asheville was still a small mountain town and not a destination for wealthy retirees. I walked back to my workshop and pulled the deed from my grandfather's fireproof safe. Lot 47, Riverbend District, Asheville, NC. Purchased $1,982. Fee simple absolute. His signature still visible in faded ink. I photographed every page and called my sister Jordan, contracts attorney in Charlotte, the only person sharper than my grandfather had been. Don't sign anything, she said after 1 minute of silence. Don't pay anything. And don't let them establish any pattern of use. I'm seeing massive red flags already. I slept poorly that night. Not from worry, exactly. I'd been through enough in 32 years to know most problems have solutions if you stay calm and think clearly. But something about the way Diane Whitmore had looked at my amphitheater, at my property, at my inheritance, like it was already hers, and I was just some kid who hadn't figured out how the world worked yet. That look bothered me more than the threats or the fees or the fake amendment. Around 2 a.m., I heard voices at the amphitheater, grabbed my flashlight. 3 people with clipboards photographing the stage, measuring, documenting. One was the security guard from earlier. I watched from the trees for 20 minutes. They never knew I was there. When they left, I wrote down everything. Time, 2:17, AM vehicle, white Riverbend van. What they measured? Stage dimensions, stonework, electrical panel. Jordan taught me this years ago. Document everything. Trust the evidence. I filed the notes with my deed. Went back to bed and slept fine this time, because now I understood. This wasn't about community programming. This was about control. About someone who'd gotten used to power and decided to extend it beyond legal boundaries. If Diane Whitmore thought she could intimidate someone who'd spent 15 years dealing with music industry contract disputes, she was about to learn about persistence. Monday morning, 7 a.m., construction sounds. I walked outside. Chain link fence, 6 feet high, locked gate, blocking my access to the amphitheater. Fresh concrete. Sign. Riverbend Community Association property. Unauthorized access prohibited. Diane's black Lexus pulled up. Red blazer. Same smile. Good morning, Mr. Cross. Our security enhancement. You've fenced my own property. Blocking my access. She pulled out documents. Community Spaces Amendment. Performance venues require association management. You can get a permit once fees are current and you have $2. Million liability insurance. I have insurance. And county permits. County permits don't supersede HOA safety review. Her voice hardened. Your grandfather was from a different era. He didn't understand modern liability. Adapt or find yourself isolated. Business card through the fence. Then she left. I called Jordan. She answered on the first ring, her voice sharp and awake, despite it being Monday morning. She did what? I told her about the fence. I heard her take a sharp breath. Alex, listen carefully. Do not cut that fence. Do not damage it. Do not give them any reason to claim you're the aggressor. Photograph everything. The fence, the sign, the concrete, the exact location. I'm driving up there this weekend. This just became a much bigger problem. I spent the next 3 hours documenting the fence from every angle. I measured the distance from my property line. The fence sat squarely on land that had been deeded to my family for 42 years, blocking an access easement explicitly granted in the 1982 purchase agreement. I photographed the fresh concrete, the locked gate, the threatening sign. I even found boot prints in the soft ground near the posts and photographed those too. Jordan arrived Friday with file boxes and her laptop. Went straight to the fence, studied it, photographed. Then we spread everything on my grandfather's drafting table. She read the HOA amendment 3 times, jaw tightening. Alex, no notary seal, no county clerk stamp, no recording number, just printed paper with a logo. Fake? Internal HOA document. 0 legal authority over your property. Your deed's been recorded 42 years. They can't just declare jurisdiction. She pulled up Riverbend's incorporation map from 1999. Pointed to my lot, Lot 47, excluded from HOA jurisdiction, private performance venue. They've always known, I said. Always. It's in their own filed documents. She showed me their 2023 financial report. Diane's a commercial realtor. If she converts your amphitheater to community amenity, every house gains $75, $125K value. That's marketing gold. When houses sell, she gets 6% commission on that increase. Money. Not community. Money. What's our next move? Jordan closed the laptop. We fight back. Legally, methodically, with every piece of documentation we can gather. But first, I need you to do something that's going to feel wrong. What? Let them use it. For now. Document every single event, every person who trespasses, every time they damage something. Build an airtight case. Then we destroy them. That weekend, I watched from my workshop as Riverbend held a Shakespeare in the Park production on my grandfather's stage. 100-person audience. Professional lighting they'd rented. Catering trucks. Ticket sales advertised at $25 per person. I photographed everything. Timestamps. Attendance estimates. The banner that said, "Presented by Riverbend Community Association." The trash they left behind. The scratches on the stone work from moving equipment. The electrical panel they'd accessed without permission. Evidence. Mountains of evidence. Sunday evening, after they'd left, I walked through the amphitheater, picking up abandoned programs and water bottles. Someone had carved initials into one of the limestone blocks my grandfather had placed. Someone else had spilled soda on the acoustic shell, leaving a sticky residue. I sat on the edge of the stage where my grandfather used to sit, where he taught me about sound waves and reverb, about the magic of a well-built performance space. The sunset painted the French Broad River orange and gold below us. "I'm going to fix this," I said to the empty theater. "I promise." For 3 days, nothing happened. No more visits from Diane, no security guards prowling my property. The fence stayed locked, forcing me to hike through the woods to reach the amphitheater. But otherwise, silence. Jordan kept digging through county records from Charlotte. I kept documenting every social media post about our community theater, every photo of families enjoying our neighborhood amphitheater, every comment thanking the HOA for preserving our cultural gest. On Wednesday afternoon, I actually started to think maybe I could just let the lawyer handle this quietly. Maybe we'd scared Diane enough with talk of property rights and legal action that she'd back down without a public fight. I should have known better. Thursday morning. Email blast to all 847 Riverbend households. Not to me, about me. Subject: urgent. Community theater under threat. I read it 3 times. Jaw tightening. Diane's masterpiece of manipulation. My grandfather had welcomed neighbors, and understood some spaces transcend individual ownership. Current owner trying to restrict access and commercialize for private profit. She was consulting legal counsel to protect our cultural heritage. Never said my name, didn't have to. By Friday, Facebook exploded. Diane posted Shakespeare production photos, families, children in costume, elderly couples. Caption: sadly, corporate interests are trying to take this away. Number save our theater. Number community over profit. Comments poured in. Who's destroying our theater? Typical wealthy outsider. We should use eminent domain. Hundreds of comments, 0 questions. Everyone believed Diane. Saturday at the grocery store, the cashier looked through me. 2 neighbors crossed the street. Note on my truck: community rights matter more than your greed. Monday, client cancellation. Brewery sound system design, going with a different engineer. Tuesday, another wedding venue. No explanation. Wednesday, recording studio called, getting feedback about your reputation. Take a few weeks off? My calendar emptied. My income bled. Diane knew exactly what she was doing. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't defend myself on social media or send angry emails. Instead, I researched. I spent the next 4 days digging into North Carolina property law, HOA regulations, adverse possession statutes, everything I could find. I made notes on legal pads, drawing connections, identifying statutes that might apply. NC General Statute 47, FSHE, HOA authority limited to common areas designated in the original declaration. Adverse possession requires 20 years of continuous, open, hostile use with color of title. The amphitheater deed predated the HOA by 17 years. The pieces were there. I just needed to assemble them correctly. But I also knew I couldn't do this alone. Diane had the community, the board, the power of groupthink. I needed allies. Thursday evening, doorbell. Robert Caldwell, the older man from the Shakespeare production. UNC Asheville Theater Department shirt. He sat in my living room, looked at my evidence piles. You're doing your homework? Good. He'd known my grandfather since 2001. Ben refused to sell to the developer. They fought for months. Finally agreed. Development could happen, but amphitheater stays private in perpetuity. Ben made such a point of that word during rehearsal. Robert leaned forward. Diane's been planning this for years. Commercial realtor. She converts your amphitheater to community amenity. Every house gains $100K value. She gets 6% of that when they sell. Last year, HOA landscaping budget was $68,000. I walk these streets. Maybe $20,000 actual work. Her brother-in-law owns the company. He handed me a card with handwritten names: County Clerk, Planning Commission, Property Rights Attorney. You're not alone. Several of us see through her. We're afraid to speak up. We've seen what she does. But if you fight, we'll back you when it counts. After he left, I looked at the amphitheater through trees. Teenagers taking selfies on the stage my grandfather built. Another photo, another timestamp, each trespass documented. My phone buzzed. Notice on doorstep, HOA fine, $750 per day for failure to maintain community amenity standards. I smiled. Every overreach created evidence. Harassment, bad faith. Proof she knew this was my property and was trying to steal it anyway. I went back inside, added the fine notice to my growing file, and opened my laptop. It was time to find a lawyer. It was time to stop playing defense and start preparing for war. Emergency HOA meeting, August 27th. 2 weeks after the confrontation, 243 residents RSVP'd. Record attendance. I walked into the community center. Neighbors who'd waved to me, attended my grandfather's memorial, promised to honor his legacy. Now they looked at me like I was destroying their way of life. Diane at the front. Slideshow ready. Red blazer. Professional. First slide. Amphitheater. At sunset. Families. Children performing. Beautiful photos, making it look like public property. For 25 years, this has been our gathering place, she began. Voice, perfect, warm, authoritative. Children's theater camps, summer concerts, community Shakespeare, memories that define Riverbend. Pause. Let nostalgia settle. Now, one individual wants to take that away. Every head turned. Found me in the back. I had my evidence packets ready. When she opened for comments, I walked to the microphone. Thank you, Diane. I'd like to share facts you omitted. Distributed packets down the aisles. This amphitheater predates the HOA by 17 years. My grandfather built it in 1982. Original development agreement explicitly excludes it. Ownership isn't debatable, it's established by recorded deed. Showed county tax records. Clean title. Survey map with clear boundaries. I'm not taking anything. I'm protecting what was never yours to give. Mixed reactions. Some read the packets, others unmoved. Woman in front stood. Save Our Theater t-shirt, professionally printed. That's just paperwork. 25 years of use creates legal precedent. Adverse possession. Diane seized it. Exactly. Documents can be interpreted, but decades of community use, that's real. Are we letting technicalities destroy what we built? Room murmured agreement. Robert watched, said nothing. Long-term residents studied my documents but stayed quiet. Diane moved for a vote. This had been her plan, not discussion, manufacturing consent, public record of community support. All in favor of HOA pursuing legal action to secure amphitheater access? Hands up. I counted fast. 187 yes, 23 no, 16 abstaining. Diane smiled, sharp, satisfied. The people have spoken. I gathered materials, walked out, weight of those votes like physical pressure. In the parking lot, Robert Caldwell caught up with me, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. Don't give up, he whispered. I remember your grandfather fighting the developers. He was right to keep that deed separate. Come see me tomorrow. Then he walked back inside before anyone could see us talking. Next 72 hours, worse. Diane posted, legal experts confirmed amphitheater access within HOA rights. Comments uglier. Alex Cross should be forced out. Heard he threatened kids in youth theater. Lies spread. Parents posted safety concerns. Anonymous next door. Taking photos of children. Creepy. HOA should investigate. Vandalism started. Mailbox spray painted. Greed kills art. Truck keyed $1,200 damage. Memorial garden trampled. Boot prints in soil. Police report filed. Same officer from before. Wrote it down. Eyes said, you brought this on yourself. 2 more clients gone. Decided to work with different engineer. Studio stopped calling. Diane's strategy working. Financial isolation. Social isolation. Professional isolation. Make resistance cost too high. Most people fold. I understood why Robert said others were afraid. Diane perfected this control system. Community learned not to cross her. I spent Friday afternoon at Robert Caldwell's house, a modest cottage filled with theater memorabilia and old playbills from productions spanning decades. He showed me documents he'd kept from the early days of the development. Planning commission meetings, the original HOA charter, correspondence between my grandfather and the developers. Diane amended the bylaws in 2023, he said, pointing to a section about cultural resources. Added this community spaces language, passed it with a 52% vote. But look, he showed me the legal requirements in North Carolina General Statute 47F. Amendments affecting property easements or access rights require 67% approval. This was never valid. She's been using an illegal bylaw to claim authority she doesn't have. He pulled out more records. HOA financial statements showing payments to her brother-in-law's landscaping company amounts that didn't match any visible improvements. Last year alone, $84,000 to his company? For what? The entrance plantings cost maybe $15,000 at most. Where did the other $69,000 go? I photographed everything. Filled a new folder on my laptop. Watched the case against Diane build piece by piece. "Why haven't you brought this up?" I asked. Robert smiled sadly. "I'm 74 years old, Alex. I've lived through enough battles to know which ones I can win alone. But you have standing. You have documentation. You have the one thing Diane can't argue away, an ironclad deed that predates her entire empire." He leaned back in his chair. "She's counting on you giving up, on the pressure breaking you. Don't let it. 3 weeks from now, there's a general HOA meeting required by bylaws, open attendance, recorded minutes. That's your battlefield. That's where you make your stand." I drove home as the sun set, watching the last light fade over the French Broad River below my property. I thought about my grandfather building that amphitheater stone by stone, teaching me about acoustics when I was 12, showing me how a well-designed space could make even a whisper sound like poetry. This wasn't just about property rights, or money, or community politics. This was about honoring the man who'd raised me to stand up for truth, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. The workshop was quiet when I got inside, but the isolation felt different now. Not like defeat, like preparation. I had 3 weeks to build an unbreakable case. 3 weeks to find every piece of evidence, every witness, every legal precedent that proved Diane was wrong. I pulled out my laptop and started typing. The war wasn't over. It was just entering a new phase. Next 5 days, coffee, legal pads, North Carolina Property Code, NC General Statute 47F HOA authority limited to common areas in the original declaration. Adverse possession needs 20 years continuous use plus payment of property taxes. Amphitheater predated HOA by 17 years. I pulled every photo of my grandfather at the amphitheater. Every image from 1982 to 2015 showed private property signs. Any community use was by invitation controlled theater programs, not open public access. Then I found it. Downloaded every Riverbend bylaw version, compared line by line. March 2023. Diane added Section 14.7, Cultural Resources Access. Required community access to performance venues. Voting records showed 52% approval. NC statute requires 67% for amendments affecting property rights. Diane's amendment was invalid, illegal. She'd been using it for 18 months. Requested HOA financial records. NC law allows member review. Treasurer send password-protected PDFs. Budget reports 2020 present. Caldwell, landscaping and design. Robert's different. Caldwell, Diane's brother-in-law, Michael. $84,000 over 3 years. Invoices vague. Amphitheater grounds maintenance, $12,000. Theater pathway restoration, $18,000. I photographed the amphitheater, every inch. Compared to Google Earth satellite images from 2015, nothing changed. Zero new work, $54,500 in fraudulent billing. Then the smoking gun. Old email thread accidentally forwarded, quickly recalled, but I downloaded it first. From Diane. February 2024. County denied our easement petition. Legal counsel says if we establish continuous public use, we may have adverse possession grounds by 2029. Recommend monthly events, social media documentation, frame objections as attacks on community. She conspired to create false history, knowing she had no legal right, documented in her own words. Conspiracy to commit property theft. I saved that email 5 places. Backed up 3 cloud services. Printed copies. Checkmate. Friday, met property rights attorney Margaret Torres. Showed her everything. She reviewed for 2 hours, looked up over reading glasses. One of the strongest property rights cases I've seen in 20 years. Deeds ironclad, amendments invalid. This email tapped the conspiracy printout, prosecutable fraud. Strategy, cease and desist. Restraining order, civil suit. Criminal referral for fake invoices. Total cost, $20. 3, $5K. Could take 8 to 14 months. What if I force her to implode before trial? I asked. Margaret smiled slightly. You have a plan? Told her about the general HOA meeting, my right to address residents. The audience. I want to expose her publicly. End this without years of litigation. Risky. You'll burn bridges, but if you have evidence, it could work. One night, she drafted cease and desist letters, sent litigation holds to board. I walked out with legal ammunition, 3 weeks to prepare. That evening, I organized everything into a clear narrative. Act 1, property rights, the unbreakable deed. Act 2, the conspiracy, Diane's calculated deception. Act 3, the fraud, stolen money, and fake invoices. I printed 100 copies of a comprehensive evidence packet, organized with color-coded tabs and highlighted sections, photos, documents, laws, emails, financial records, everything indexed and professional. I sent an email to the HOA board invoking my legal right under NC General Statute 47F3108 to address the general membership. I requested 20 minutes to present information regarding amphitheater ownership and HOA financial management. Diane's response came at 1:47 a.m. Mr. Cross, you'll have 10 minutes, not a second more. The community has already voted. I replied with a counteroffer. 10 minutes is fine, as long as you also present your evidence under the same time constraint, and all amphitheater-related financial records are made available for resident review before the meeting. She didn't respond. The silence was its own answer. 3 weeks until the truth comes out. I picked up the bronze theater mask from my grandfather's desk, felt its weight in my palm. He'd cast it himself, carved the inscription on the back, "Some stages are worth fighting for." Now I would honor that by exposing everyone who tried to steal his legacy. 2 weeks before meeting, Marcus Webb, vice president, quiet accountant, sent encrypted email. We need to talk. HOA financial irregularities. Coffee shop. Downtown Asheville. Far from Riverbend. Marcus, early 50s, careful expression. USB drive across table. Diane has the board hostage. Controls information, manipulates votes, retaliates. I've documented 14 months. USB drive, bank statements, invoices, emails, showing contract approval without bids. Brother-in-law's landscaping, $184,000 over 4 years. Why now? Looked at coffee. I'm a CPA, can't be party to fraud, but can't afford to lose my position. Kids' school here, wife's friends here. Diane destroys people. Met my eyes, but you have standing. Documentation, ironclad deed. If we work together, we end this. Over next week, 3 more allies. Retired attorney offered pro bono strategy review. Diane violated 12 NC statutes, fake invoices, embezzlement. Conspiracy email, textbook fraud. Judge Patricia Morrison, 32 years on bench, agreed to attend meeting. HOAs operate in legal gray zone. People like Diane exploit that. Sometimes one person standing up gives everyone else permission to tell truth. 2 weeks before meeting, made chess moves, certified letters to board, cease and desist, litigation holds, copies to attorney, official trail, Marcus texted, emergency board session, 4 want Diane to back down, she's panicking, formal public records request, every amphitheater communication, every Caldwell contract, every conflict disclosure, NC law, compliance required 10 days. Anonymous tip to DA, package of financial documents, cover letter, potential misuse of HOA funds, Margaret handled it, my name off initial filing, investigation would take months, but seed planted. 4th, strategic information sharing with one influential resident, a longtime neighbor who'd been friends with my grandfather. I showed her just the property deed and Diane's failed county petition. Her shocked reaction was genuine. She told us it was HOA property. She lied to us. Within 3 days, doubt was spreading through the community. Quiet conversations, questioning the narrative they'd been fed. Diane's response was desperate. 5 days before the meeting, she sent an email to all residents outlining strict meeting protocols. Due to the contentious nature of Tuesday's discussion, time limits will be strictly enforced. Mr. Cross will have 10 minutes to present his claims. No interruptions will be allowed. The board will then present our evidence and legal analysis. She attached a document titled Amphitheater Facts that was pure propaganda, full of emotional appeals and distorted history. I replied to the entire email list with a simple message. Diane, I accept the 10-minute limit on one condition. You also present your evidence under the same time constraint. And all HOA financial records related to the amphitheater are made available for resident review at the meeting. Transparency benefits everyone. See you Tuesday. She didn't respond publicly, but Marcus told me she'd called another emergency board session that night, trying to figure out how to handle what was coming. Night before meeting, surrounded by evidence packets, PowerPoint tested, 3 USB backups. Ready. Walked to amphitheater, stood on grandfather's stage. Moonlight on French Broad River. This was it. Tomorrow, everything changes. Either Diane's lies crumble under evidence, or community chooses comfortable fiction over truth. Phone buzzed. 287 RSVP'd. Standing room only. This is it. Replied. Truth wins. Dawn broke cold. The 17th of September 2024. Reviewed presentation. Straightened tie. Grandfather's opening night tie. Bronze mask in jacket pocket. 4 p.m. Arrived community center. 3 hours early. Control setup. Eliminate Diane's technical surprises. Marcus helped test projector. Worked. Tested backup. Worked. Loaded venue computer. Kept laptop as third redundancy. Margaret Torres arranged evidence packets on entrance tables. Professional. Accessible. Take one. Robert greeted arrivals. Casual conversation. Big night. Truth always comes out. 5:30. Residents arrived. Diane supporters front 35%. Another 40% hostile. 20% curious. Reading packets. 5%. My allies scattered strategically. Diane. 6:45. Deliberately late. Red blazer perfect. Hair flawless. Worked room like politician, but hands shook picking up evidence packet. Smile too wide. Eyes darting. She was nervous. 6:50. Approached me. Power play. Loud enough for others. Alex, keep this civil. Community doesn't need division. Looked at her steadily. I agree. Civil, factual, transparent. Truth doesn't divide. Lies do. Something flickered. Anger, fear. Smile snapped back. 6:55. Every seat filled. 320 chairs. 60 standing. Some brought popcorn. Entertainment. Judge Morrison, middle section. Marcus at board table. County clerk in back official witness. 7 p.m. Diane's gavel. Sharp crack. Good evening. Tonight we address the amphitheater situation, moving quickly, controlling agenda, but I stood. Point of order, Madam President. Voice carried. Bylaws Section 9.4, residents' right to address board before votes. I invoke that right. Every head turned. Diane's smile hurt. Of course, 10 minutes. Keep it relevant and respectful. Walked to podium. Connected laptop. 380 faces. Curious. Hostile. Convinced. Room silent. Clicked remote. First slide. Amphitheater. Ownership. Property rights. Community trust. And the truth breath. Bronze mask in pocket. Thank you for being here. Next 10 minutes. Facts. Not opinions, not emotions. Facts. By the end, you'll understand what's been happening and why it must stop. Silence held. Diane at board table. Hands folded. Smile frozen. Marcus wouldn't meet her eyes. Something shifted. Collective breath before plunge. Clicked second slide. Let evidence speak. I'm going to start with a simple question. Who owns the amphitheater at 47 Riverbend Ridge? I let the question hang for 3 seconds of absolute silence. Then I clicked to the next slide. The county survey map appeared the amphitheater outlined in red, with its own separate tax parcel number clearly visible. This is the official Buncombe County survey. Parcel 28477893421. Notice it has a completely separate tax identification number from all surrounding HOA parcels. Click. This is the deed my grandfather Benjamin Cross received in 1982, 17 years before Riverbend Community Association even existed. The deed filled the screen, critical language highlighted in yellow. Fee, simple, absolute, all rights, title, and interest. 2 acres including natural stone amphitheater, riverfront access, and all improvements. Fee, simple absolute, means complete, unrestricted ownership. Not shared, not conditional, absolute. The hostile energy in the room shifted toward uncertainty. I pressed forward. In 1998, a developer wanted to build this neighborhood. My grandfather agreed to allow development on adjacent land. But look at Section 9 of that agreement. The development contract appeared, passage highlighted. The amphitheater property shall remain private property of Benjamin Cross in perpetuity. Developer acknowledges no rights, easements, or claims to said property. Perpetuity, forever. Not until the HOA wants it, forever. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several people opened their evidence packets, verifying what I was showing them. Some may think the HOA acquired rights later through community use. So I requested an official title search from the county clerk. The letter appeared on screen, official Buncombe County letterhead. Search of records shows no easements, no liens, no encumbrances. Title remains clear and uncontested in the name of Benjamin Cross Estate. I paused for effect. That's the county stating officially, no one but my family has any legal claim to this property. I showed the North Carolina statute on screen. NC General Statute 47F3102 limits HOA authority to common areas designated in the original declaration. The amphitheater was never designated as a common area because the HOA didn't exist when my grandfather bought it. People who'd come to attack me now looked confused, glancing at Diane for explanation. The amphitheater is private property, always has been. Always will be. Diane stood abruptly, her voice sharp. Mr. Cross, this is a lovely history lesson, but community practice matters. Your grandfather allowed neighbors to use the space for years. That creates precedent. Perfect. I'm glad you brought that up, Diane. Let's talk about what you actually know. I clicked to the next slide. 7 months ago, February 2024, Diane Whitmore filed a petition with Buncombe County to establish a public access easement over my grandfather's amphitheater. The petition appeared on screen official county document with Diane's signature. She filed this because she knew the amphitheater was private property. She tried the legal route first. I highlighted the county's ruling in red. Petition denied. Applicant lacks standing. Private property not subject to involuntary public easement without compensation and due process. Gasps from the audience. The county officially told Diane, no, this is private property. You have no right to it. Click. So what did Diane do after being told no by the county? The conspiracy email filled the screen. The room exploded in noise. I raised my voice over the chaos. She sent this email to the HOA board. Let me read it for those in the back. I read aloud, clearly and slowly. As we discussed, the county denied our petition to establish a public easement. However, legal counsel has advised that if we can establish continuous public use, we may have grounds for an adverse possession claim. I recommend monthly public events with extensive social media documentation showing traditional community use. If the new owner objects, frame it as a tax on community values. The crowd was on its feet, shouting, "She conspired to create false history," I continued, my voice cutting through the noise. To fabricate a legal claim she knew was baseless. She tried to steal property through deception. Diane shouted back, her composure finally cracking. That email is taken out of context. You're twisting my words. I looked directly at her. The context is the conspiracy, Diane. You knew you had no legal right. So, you planned to fabricate one through staged events and social manipulation. I showed the timeline of social media posts, Diane's own Facebook and Instagram posts, calling the amphitheater our community cultural space, our neighborhood theater, shared heritage. You misled residents, created mob mentality, made them believe they were defending community rights when you were actually helping you commit property theft. Several residents stood, anger redirecting toward Diane. You told us it was ours, one woman shouted. I defended you on Nextdoor. Another yelled, you made me look like a fool. Diane tried to speak. This is a witch hunt. I've served this community for 6 years. You've served yourself, I interrupted. Click. Part 3. The Fraud. Construction invoices appeared on screen line after line of payments to Caldwell Landscaping and Design. Invoices submitted by Michael Caldwell, Diane's brother-in-law. Amphitheater grounds maintenance, $12,000. Theater pathway restoration, $18,000. Performance venue landscaping, $9,500. In total, $184,000 over 4 years for work allegedly done on the amphitheater. Dangerous silence fell across the room. I clicked to the photo comparison split screen showing historical satellite images versus current photos. Nothing changed. No pathway restoration. No landscaping improvements. No grounds maintenance. Everything is identical. $184,000 in fraudulent billing. Your HOA dues funneled to Diane's family for work that was never performed. Diane screamed, "Those were legitimate contracts." You can't prove, Marcus Webb stood, his voice shaking but clear. As HOA Vice President and Certified Public Accountant, I've reviewed these invoices. There's no supporting documentation, no work orders, no before and after photos, no competitive bids. Diane approved every single one without board oversight. Another board member stood, face pale. Diane, you told us these were emergency repairs that had already been approved. You showed us photos? Shut up, Diane's voice cracked. You don't understand how this works. You don't understand what it takes to maintain property values. That sentence revealed everything. The crowd erupted in fury. I raised my voice one final time. Under North Carolina General Statute 14-92, theft of HOA funds by a board officer is embezzlement, a Class H felony carrying 4 to 25 months in prison. Which is why I invited the Assistant District Attorney tonight. Every head turned. In the back, ADA Jennifer Reyes raised her hand, taking notes. Diane went white. Through the chaos, Robert Caldwell's voice rang clear. He stood slowly, the room quieting to hear him. I've lived in Riverbend for 23 years. I knew Benjamin Cross. He was a good man, an honest man. His voice cracked with emotion. Ben built that amphitheater with his own hands over 2 years. He taught theater to anyone who wanted to learn. He gave to this community more than anyone. He looked directly at Diane. You dishonored his memory. You dishonored his legacy. You dishonored every principle he stood for. Shame on you. The applause started slowly, then built into a wave. Others stood. Judge Morrison stood. Margaret Torres stood. People who'd posted angry comments about me online stood with tears in their eyes. One woman approached the microphone, voice shaking. I owe you an apology, Alex. We all do. We attacked you without checking facts, without asking questions. I'm so sorry. One by one, residents apologized. The wave rolled through the room. Diane stood alone at the board table, isolated and exposed. Marcus moved formally. I move for an immediate vote of no confidence in President Diane Whitmore, citing financial misconduct, breach of fiduciary duty, and conspiracy to commit property fraud. Another board member seconded instantly. Diane's voice was desperate, breaking. You can't do this. This is insane. I built this community. I increased your property values. I spoke quietly but clearly, and somehow my voice carried through the chaos. You built an empire on lies, Diane. Tonight, the community chose truth. The vote was called. Hands rose like a wave, overwhelming, undeniable. All in favor, 293 hands. Opposed, 7 hands, Diane's closest friends. The motion passes. Diane Whitmore is removed as HOA president, effective immediately. She grabbed her belongings, knocking papers off the table, her red blazer disheveled for the first time. "You'll all regret this. I'll sue every one of you. This isn't over." Robert Caldwell's voice cut through her tantrum. "Oh, it's over," she stormed out. The door slammed. Stunned silence. Then applause, building until everyone was standing, clapping, some crying. I remained at the podium, exhausted and vindicated. Marcus shook my hand. "You freed us." Residents lined up to apologize, to thank me, to shake my hand. I accepted each with grace, understanding they'd been manipulated too. Outside in the parking lot, the night air was cool and clear. I walked to my truck, letting adrenaline drain. My phone buzzed. The ADA wants to meet tomorrow morning. They're definitely pressing charges. I drove home slowly, watching the amphitheater appear through trees, moonlight reflecting off the stone my grandfather had placed. Finally, truly mine. Without question. I sat on the stage, pulled out the bronze theater mask, held it up to catch the moonlight. "We did it," I whispered, together. The truth hadn't needed defense, just time, evidence, and courage. 3 weeks later, Buncombe County DA press release. Diane Whitmore indicted. 4 counts. Embezzlement, $184,000. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Obtaining property by false pretenses. Computer fraud falsifying HOA records. Plea bargain, 16 months prison, 3 years probation, $200,000 restitution, lifetime HOA ban in North Carolina. $184,000 repayment, plus penalties, statewide HOA contract ban. Local news. HOA President's Theater, land grab exposed. Cautionary tale in NC property law. Diane's real estate license suspended. She and her husband moved out 4 months later. Reporter asked for comment. I kept it simple. I didn't want to destroy anyone. I wanted to protect what was mine and expose what was wrong. The system worked. HOA transformed. Marcus Webb became president, unanimous vote. Reforms. Monthly budget reports online. 3 competitive bids required. Annual external audits. Live-streamed meetings. Amendment added. Private property shall not be claimed without owner's written consent and recorded deed modification. 4 months later, I stood at the amphitheater with a work crew. New sound system, updated lighting, accessible seating, weather protection, $42,000 my money, because it was right. Also added, museum corner in ticket booth, Benjamin Cross legacy, photos of him building the stage, design sketches, timeline of productions, letters from students he'd changed, glass display case, bronze theater mask. Plaque. Some stages are worth fighting for. This symbolizes integrity, perseverance, and truth that cannot be taken by force, only surrendered by choice. Created Amphitheater Arts Program. Families and schools apply for access. 6 events per month. Rules simple. Respect property. Clean up. Supervised only. Understand privilege. Not right. First group. Youth Theater. Bringing Shakespeare to underserved schools. Director cried, getting the permit. Thank you for showing us integrity. Your grandfather would be proud. Good boundaries make good neighbors. I told her. That makes sharing meaningful. 1 year later, October evening, sat on stage where my grandfather used to sit during rehearsals. Soundboard beside me. Watching sunset over French Broad River. Riverbend, model HOA, featured in management journals. 5 NC neighborhoods used my case, fighting HOA overreach. State legislatures cited it passing HOA reform legislation. My grandfather's stand created ripples far beyond this amphitheater. I'd written a book, Standing Ground, Property Rights, Community, and Truth Worth Fighting For. Proceeds to legal aid for homeowners fighting HOA abuse. Teenager appeared. Uncertain. I walked over. Interested in theater? Nervous. Yeah, I heard there used to be classes, before the legal stuff. I smiled. Still are. Free workshops every month for young audio engineers and theater tech students. Here's a flyer. Face lit up. Really? I want to be a sound engineer. Everyone said you didn't like the community. I love this community. That's why I fought to protect something worth preserving. It's not about fences. It's about taking care of things that matter so they last. She looked at amphitheater. Stonework catching evening light. My drama teacher said your grandfather was amazing, taught for free. He did, because theater changes lives. Want to see the museum? Showing her my grandfather's legacy photos, sketches, letters, I realized the real victory. Not the legal battle, not exposing Diane's fraud. The real victory. Amphitheater still stood. Lessons still mattered. Truth still won. New generation learning what my grandfather taught me. Some stages are worth fighting for. Not with anger, but evidence. Not with violence, but patience. Not with compromise, but unwavering commitment to truth. The amphitheater remained private property of Benjamin Cross Estate Trust, but also became proof. One person standing firm against the tide can change everything. Bronze theater mask sits on my desk, catching afternoon light. Inscription: some stages are worth fighting for. Reminder, not a victory over Diane Whitmore, but victory with my grandfather, across time, across death, united by simple truth. Some things are worth protecting, no matter the cost. In the end, truth backed by evidence and courage always outlasts lies backed by manufactured authority. Always.